Hey there, everyone. Welcome to 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. My name is Matt, and with me, as always, is.
Dan the Movie Man.
Hey, Dan, how are you, sir?
I'm doing really great this mid afternoon. How about yourself, Mr. Matt?
Doing okay. Can't complain too much. Excited to talk about what we've got today. We're talking about My Man Godfrey. And I'm not talking about my friend Godfrey, I'm talking about the movie My Man Godfrey from 1936, following along in this 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. It is the book that we've been going through each and every week here on the show, on the channel. Of course, available on Amazon and wherever you get your books if you'd like to join with us. Um, Today is page 128. And before we get into our review, as per our new usual, Dan, tell us what we know about this movie, My Man Godfrey. Got any stats for us?
Of course, Mr. Matt. So, my man Godfrey, as you stated, released in 1936. One movie that ended up getting a ton of nominations for the Academy Awards in 1937. We had nominees for Best Actor in a Leading Role, William Powell, Best Actress in a Leading Role, Carole Lombard, who the two actually were married and divorced prior to starring opposite one another in this film, which is an interesting fact. Best Actor in a Supporting Role, Misha Aur. Best Actress Supporting Role, Alice Brady. And Best Director, Gregory La Cava. I believe they went on to win two out of those, or actually none at the time. They didn't win anything until much, much, much later. Um, some interesting things. I know Matt had pulled up some fun facts for us as well. This had Mr. David Niven as Tommy Gray. He would later reappear in the 1957 remake as Godfrey on this. So if you are interested or have seen this movie and you want to try to see if it still pans out in 1957, I'm not really 100% sure if it holds the same effect, but that is out there for you. This is the only movie ever to get an Oscar nomination for writing, directing, all four acting awards without being nominated for Best Picture. It's also the only movie to ever get all six of those nominations and lose them all. So, as far as this goes, one interesting thing, it says a stand-in was used when William Powell carries Carole Lombard over her shoulder up the stairs to her bedroom. And then also another fun fact Matt had fed to me before this episode. This was the first film to ever receive four acting nominations at the Academy Awards. Did so that year as supporting categories were introduced. So we had a lot of activity going on in the award situation. We know this movie cost a little over $500,000 to make at that time period, significant amount of money. This film would also later be categorized as one of the top 50 comedy films of all time and has been entered into the Centurion collection, which I believe is how I actually viewed it, was from the Centurion collection on where did we watch this? Roku. That's where we saw it. And I know Matt, you saw that under a different one. So who was streaming this? Do you remember?
So, yeah, I watched it on Amazon Prime. It's this, the black and white version and the color version are both on Prime.
Yeah, I know for us, I kind of got a little bit of both, the color version and the black and white version. We had started one, went back to the other, and fast forwarded, moving between TVs. So, what's always fun to me in older movies is to sit down and when you start seeing the colorizations, you realize like a lot of hand painting and things went into it to make it, pop. And it's very just amazing how much effort goes into that as you watch the film. So it's really what I had about wrapped up in stats. Matt, I'm not sure if you have anything to add or if you want to jump right into your review.
I just realized I didn't read the description, so I was just going to, for those of you who may not have seen this, it's My Man Godfrey, as we've said numerous times, 1936, directed by Gregory La Cava. Sure, we'll go with that. Fifth Avenue socialite Irene Bullock needs a forgotten man, quote unquote, forgotten man to win a scavenger hunt, and no one is more forgotten than Godfrey Park, who resides in a dump by the East River, Irene hires Godfrey as a servant for her notoriously unhinged family to the charging of her spoiled sister Cornelia, who tries her best to get Godfrey fired. As Irene falls for her new butler, Godfrey turns the tables and teaches the frivolous Bullocks a lesson or two. There you go. And of course, as mentioned when Dan was going over the nominations it got, starring William Powell, Carole Lombard, Alice Brady, Gail Patrick, Eugene Pallette, Gene Dixon, and a few others. I don't know about you, Dan, but I enjoyed this. I found myself liking this quite a bit. I didn't know what to expect when we got My Man Godfrey at the end of the last episode. I knew it was going to be in the 30s. Like, okay, we're going back. We're going old school. But, you know, I got to say, I don't want to be one of those people that says they don't make them like they used to. But, I mean, I just can't help it when it comes to films like this. I mean, I think we've lost this completely. Um, my initial thought is I very well enjoyed it. What was your initial take, Dan?
It's definitely something that I didn't 100% expect. And again, not too big on films from the 1930s. And what I mean by that is I really haven't sat down and watched a lot of films from the 1930s. And looking more into this, this is a prime example of a movie that was very popular, or movie type in the 1930s that was popular, called a screwball comedy. And apparently, that is when you have two leading, like an actor, actress, that are cast opposite of one another, and necessarily the audience thinks maybe they should be together, but the two that are starring in the roles don't necessarily know they belong together as a romantic couple. And again, cited before this, the two lead actors and actresses on this were actually married and divorced prior to this, and I feel like that chemistry still comes through, at least on was it Irene's part, as Godfrey kind of tries to shove her advances down to the wayside. But when you talk about humor, it was very sharp and witty and direct, and I think it definitely is reminiscent of. I think Kayla and I were talking about it. Something we'd see later with Gene Wilder, as he would come through and kind of cut right to that sort of humor. Uh, and it kept us interested. It kept me interested, even if it wasn't like the craziest plot. But you got to think 1930s, you have a man that's the forgotten man. In actuality, he's descended from a very rich family, could probably pull him up out of it. He doesn't stay down for long, though, even when he is down, and he ends up coming back at the end. And we take where he started from the dump. He's hired all these guys that have worked with him in the dump, built them up, hired them on, made an exclusive club called The Dump in the spot where the dump was, and really rose from the ashes, sort of using the stock market at the time, which I guess is very culturally significant when you talk about, how did he make the money? Well, he took the one sister's pearls. He ended up putting them down as collateral, part of the salary as collateral. He also sold short on positions that the father was losing his money, and he was picking up on that, kind of making money on the opposite side of it because he was losing money. And in the end, he ends up saving the family from financial ruin. And it was just very well thought out. And I thought made you think, what would happen if you had an undercover man that just descended from millionaires giving you financial advice, or butlering for your family, something you wouldn't see today, really, unless it was kind of drawn out. And yeah, I mean, we have the shtick now that exists. Like, okay, this guy's going to marry into a family. People don't think he's wealthy, or blah, 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 blah. And he actually is. So you got to think a lot of movies took that directly from this, or indirectly from this, or movies like this. So definitely feel this throughout time, and even in the movies today to some degree, but definitely not as well, I think, followed through. But kicking that back to you, Mr. Matt.
Sure. I think the golden age, quote unquote, golden age of film from like the 1930s on to maybe at least the 40s, maybe the 50s even, is just a really special time in film history. Um, I think the acting here was all perfect, as can be seen by the Oscar nominations. I mean, none of them won, but I thought everybody did a fantastic job. For me, Alice Brady as the mother steals the show. Her kind of zany antics was just I found myself laughing at her a few times. Um, I thought the movie was it was funny, it was smart, it was brilliant at times. The writing and this is adapted. I'm not sure you might have even already mentioned this, Dan. I apologize. It was adapted from a novel, Eric Hatch's novel. So I thought the writing, the adaptation from book to screen. I haven't read the book, but I think it translated very well. Um, I was entertained from start to finish. Uh, I really thought for an 88-year-old movie, and that's how old this movie is this year. For an 88-year-old movie, I thought that this was just very well done in all aspects. And it's set in the Depression years, and I think you see some of that, in the movie. And it just kind of seemed like a timeless classic. Like this could almost be made. We talked about uh what was it? Fast Times at Ridgemont High. That could that be made today? I think this could be made today in a lot of respects. Like you could tell the same story. Obviously they did a remake of it in the 50s. They could essentially do a remake of this today and tell the same story. And it would, if done right, it could almost be just as effective. That's what I got.
Yeah, I think one thing that's emerging in these films that we watch is, is it still significant today? And the fact is, it still carry the same message. And it's funny to think that movies from the 1930s, starring, I mean, these guys are starting to be actors at this point, well-known names in Hollywood or studios that were emerging to be monoliths in their field, and we're getting paid. We're still poking fun at the upper class. And I know there's some comments about how much in taxes that he had paid, or the father of the family. Like, I paid, was it 40 or 60% of my taxes, and what do I get for it, or what do I have to show for it? And the fact that in the start of this movie, when we're introduced to Godfrey, he's again in this dump, and you have these two sisters. I mean, let's be honest, they're kind of snobby. They're upper crust. They're, from wealth. They really haven't had to work for what they have. And they come into the picture, and they're doing a scavenger hunt, which I believe the younger sister that falls for Godfrey ends up saying, a treasure hunt is something that you use to find something people want, where scavenger hunt is you find people or things that people don't want. And then Godfrey makes a comment like the man, like just him there and there. And then he goes in, he makes his speech, he stands up in front of them, he calls all the upper crust folks nitwits. And it's funny because you hear a commentary in the background. One of the folks is there, and it's like, I think this man's spectacular. That's something that I've wanted to say all evening to these people. And you know what? How do we feel really about the division in class now? I mean, still prevalent, still something that we could identify with. So 100% agree with your statement. Could we make or remake this at this time? We could, but I feel like from the era that it's from, the actors that it had, even the set design, which it's still wild to me, where you have like the flashing lights and things in the start of the movie. A lot of this is like hand painted, hand done for the opening credits, where you had the flashing lights over the river and the scenes and all that kind of stuff. Exactly. And it stands out. It's something that today, I don't think we'd have the same, I say primitive, but how it makes it stand is so beautiful. And again, like artwork almost. So, I mean, I don't really want to go further without saying, how we feel about this movie. And I know kind of earlier than we probably do, but do you have any other closing statements you'd like to make,
I
Mr.
was
Matt?
just gonna say I was hoping we could have a picture, but I guess I don't have it prepared, so I'll have to put it up in post and editing. But there's a scene where at the end, and this is not anything to do with the movie, but this it made me chuckle. Did you see when at the end when she's talking with Godfrey and she asked to dry the dishes that he's washing, and they're having the conversation. Did you watch her dry the dishes?
I have to go back and watch that part because I probably completely
Watch her
missed.
drying the dishes. If nothing else, go back and just watch her dry the dishes. It is hilarious, and she dries each plate. I kid you not, probably a minute and a half to 2 minutes per plate. And she's just steady drying this plate while she's talking to him, and it's probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I don't know if it was done on purpose or if that was just what she was doing because just out of natural, naturally, but it was the most unnatural thing I'd ever seen. That was one thing I wanted to point out. Um, yeah, no, if it obviously when I say, with Fast Times and with this, this could be remade today. I am in no way pushing for a remake. I think the originals are fantastic. Just same with this. I've not seen the 1950s remake of this, but I have seen this original, and I just can't imagine it without William Powell as Godfrey. I think he made the character. I could be entirely wrong, but to me, you don't get this movie without William Powell's performance. Um, but yeah, no, that's all. I'm ready. I'm ready to wrap this up if you are.
Alrighty, we'll just dive right in. And I realized I forgot to say probably one of my favorite parts of the movie while we're on this. Um, I think when the sister, and forgive me because I always forget some of the names. The older sister ends up hiding her pearls.
Cornelia, I
Cornelia,
think.
she ends up hiding her pearls in Godfrey's room. And
Yes.
eventually she comes in and she says, "Oh, I want to talk to you in the other room." She starts telling people, "Hey, my pearls have been stolen, my pearl necklace." The police end up coming. He is completely, for lack of a better word, he's drunk, he's wasted. And he's on his mattress and acting all out of sorts, like, and they're pulling the room apart. And Cornelia suggests check under his mattress, and the police ask, "Why would you suggest a mattress? Like what?" And she's like, "Oh, I've read that's where people put things." And they look there, and just her shock of being outfoxed by Godfrey, who at the end, when they end up all leaving the room, he's sitting there. I believe it's a rose or a flower he's playing with, and he's just staring right at her. And it's like, man, he just pulled a fast one on her. And the fact that he ended up using it to his advantage later in the movie, one, to save her family, but also to get himself out of where he was and build the dump nightclub, I thought was a brilliant play. And just really well thought out. So to his character, to the character of his love interest that he tried to push away, and in the end, she hauls him in and gets the minister in, and they get married whether he wants to or not. I thought it was really well done, and for all these reasons, and the fact that this is a movie that is already picked as one of the top 50 comedy movies of all time, I would put this as definitely a movie you'd want to watch before you die.
All right. Um, yeah, no, I'm up there with you. I agree. And it's another one where I was like, is this one that you must see before you die? I think it is. Yeah, absolutely. Um, I think I hope we get more movies like this because I am a fan of this era. I haven't seen enough from this era. I have seen, I of course I grew up as a 60-year-old man when I was 10, essentially. So I was watching all the old like I Love Lucy and things like that, but that's from the 50s. So I like that old stuff, but uh seeing these older films and I don't have too much experience with, I think is going to be fun because I love the stuff from the 50s from like the Lucille Ball era. So like this is, some of this is, you know, is the same stuff that, before I Love Lucy. Lucille Ball and those guys were in these movies in the 30s and 40s and making this stuff. So I'm excited to see where we go once we get back into this, because I'm sure the randomizer is going to have us all over the place. But I'm excited to see what else from the 30s and 40s is in here.
Now I'm sure we're gonna get back into the likes of like Casablanca and all sorts of fun odds and ends. I'm excited for going back in time to see Dracula. Whenever we end up hitting Dracula, it's gonna be my day. The original with Bela Lugosi. That's gonna be fun because I haven't seen that and I really want to see those. But as you mentioned, Matt, recently for the folks that tuned in last week, we ended up introducing. I'm not gonna say a new cast member, but definitely a new prop, if you will, that helps us pick where we're going to go next. So, as of right now, folks, we are spinning a randomizer wheel. Matt doesn't want us to know that he sat through and typed in, 1,001 movie titles, subtracted the ones that we put in there, but that's exactly what he did. And basically, click of a button tells us where we're going to go next. So I guess without further ado, Matt, do you have that program ready to tell us and our viewers where we're headed next on our trip down the 1,001 movies to see before you die?
We should be. There we go. We should be on. You see the spinny wheel?
Sure do. Yes, sir.
Okay, here we go. So we're trying this in real time. And once again, out of next, and here we go. The Music Room from 1958. And that will be on page.
It's 345.
345. There you go.
So I think this is actually going to be a movie based out of India this time. So that'll be something different because I don't believe we've seen too many of
It's
our
a foreign film.
foreign market films, except for I guess the first one we did, which was A Trip to the Moon.
Okay. Well, this will be definitely interesting. What are your thoughts on the Music Room, Dan? Are you excited? Are you
Well,
hesitant?
absolutely. I mean, at this point, if you guys have been following us, there's only been one movie that we haven't really enjoyed. And these guys really haven't missed the mark too much yet. It is going to be one of our first foreign films that we'll be viewing. But I'm excited to see where it takes us. It says just briefly here, and I'm not going to go into the whole synopsis because we don't want to do that on this episode, but it was proved to be a critical and financial hit. So let's see what made it that way.
All right, guys. So there you have it. My Man Godfrey is, in fact, a film you must see before you die, according to us and the book. And we're going to give a take on The Music Room from 1958 next time. So be sure to tune in. Make sure you subscribe. Ring the notification bell so that way you get notified each and every time that we post a new video. Of course, we've been doing this on Fridays, looking to maybe expand into some more here soon. But until then, everyone, I hope you have a great week, and we will catch you on the next one. Thank you, everyone.